Normally we do this on the side of our trailer in the paddock. This week, my race weekend was at New Jersey Motorsports Park. But I wanted to change it up today because I have a special guest, so Brandon Paasch. So Brandon's a local, first of all, so he's from New Jersey, and he's racing motorcycles in the British Superbike Series on a Moto 3. So without making him blush, he's one of America's fastest riders. And I raced against him on Monday, which is a weird day to race, first of all.
Yeah.
We were on the same racetrack. I wouldn't say that we were racing together. We were in the same race. I was a bit outclassed. I was a little bit outgunned by the young guy. But anyway, I wanted to tell you about my weekend, talk to Brandon a bit about how he got into racing and some of the tips we could learn from a real pro. So first off, this weekend, fun racing against you. I started the race, I think there was 16 people on grid, something like that.
Yeah, 16 to 20, somewhere around there.
I started in P7, and so for me, this was always like when I started racing this year, I never do race starts. I go out, I do tons of track days, do tons of riding, and you go out, you roll, you go, and you go, right?
And you never practice starts.
Never practice starts. So this was my fourth race, because the first weekend, there were 2 races this season. And my first 3 starts were perfect. And like, that was like when I lined up and I gridded up, that was the one thing I was worried about, which is like holding the throttle open, clutch in, and when that flag drops to let the clutch out. But it's not just drop and go. It's not that easy. You get the wheelies and everything. And I had these really good starts. And then this weekend, I totally botched it. Like I put up like, it had to have been a 2-foot wheelie. Like my front wheel, I just didn't get enough weight up front. I probably had the revs too high. I try to keep them at like 6, feed it out, and then once the rear wheel bites, add more throttle and let the clutch out. I just got the timing wrong, so I had to let off, and I got passed by a bunch of people, and it frazzled me because the very first thing I did in a race was make a mistake. And then we're all steaming into turn 1. I'm going through the gearbox. We had just put the engine back in my bike, so testing it around the club, it worked fine. But I learned during the week that I had a lot of false neutrals. Whatever, that's just part of racing, right? And so I'm going into turn 1, I'm trying to click into 3rd gear, I'm just in neutral, I can't get it into gear, so now suspension is unsprung, I have no power, and I was having like a minor freak out, really. Not having a minor freak out, just not enjoying it. It was the first 30 seconds of racing this year I didn't enjoy, and you got 15 bikes trying to grab the same square footage of tarmac into turn 1, which is where all the problems usually happen. And then this red bike comes by on the outside and cuts straight through the pack, elbows out, grabs the apex and takes off, which was you. And so the way so what did happen was I had this great like MotoGP camera view because I'm on my bike and I started in 7th. Now there's probably 12 or 13 riders in front of me because of my awful start. And I was able to watch you come through, split the pack, throw a bit of an elbow, I have to say, which is fair dues. It was really fun to watch, and take off, and then you were gone, and that was it. So I judged my performance there on in turn 6, and you were like by 9, and I could see how much further you've gotten every time we got. So I was doing, I think 146s around that time, and you were doing probably 130 what's?
30. I think my fastest time of the weekend was a 36 something, 36.8, something like that.
On a 250.
On a 250,
which is quite fast.
Yeah, I mean that's all right. I've done on the KTM 390 there. I think we've done like 34s.
Okay.
When I raced there with the KTMs.
We got a lot of work. I'm getting there though. Every weekend I'm getting faster.
Every weekend's getting better.
So my little bit about about NJMP this weekend was because NASCAR is there. So usually it's Saturday and Sunday. This time it was Sunday and Monday because NASCAR was racing on Saturday. Sunday was what you would call, the scientific term, was a bit of a shit show. There's just a lot of red flags. There's about 15, 16 red flags that day, our practice day. It's a track day. It's just a lot of people crashing and then standing next to their motorcycle after they crash. So track etiquette, if you're in a car and you crash and you're off track, stay in your car, keep your helmet on, do what they say to do, that's normally it. If you're on a motorcycle, get away from your motorcycle, keep your helmet on, go to the other side of the railing so the rest of us can circulate. However, my real racing tip and everything this weekend was I made a hash of the start But you know, by turn 3, that was my apex to straighten everything out and sort of that's the next thing. You don't wait for the next lap. You don't wait for the next race. You just wait for the next corner. Just so to get it straightened out. And it's all about being in between your head. And you know, I knew I could ride better than I was, and so I just tried to ride better, and eventually I did. And my race was a bit lonely. I think I had a few people behind me, most of them in front of me. I saw who was in front of me, and I was just trying to close that gap and just go as fast as I can. And I was really happy with my riding about that. But while we have you in the house, tell us a little bit how you started. So, you know, for us, what we like to talk about is that racing is something you can do if you want to. It's a bit daunting, it's a bit complicated to figure out, but like, how did you start and how did you get this far?
So when I was really young, I think I started riding when I was about 2. It's pretty much just a family thing. Like my grandpa used to ride on the street, my mom used to ride, my uncle used to race in the AMA, and just it was just around me when I grew up. So I just pretty much came in at an early age and started riding at my house. We still have a track in my house and ride almost every day there. So that's what it all started, yeah.
And so when I started for this goal to race this year, I started my program 2 years earlier. So I've been riding for a long time, but I thought, okay, I want to pick the right bike. I want to pick the right series. I want to pick. It's easy to go out and buy a 1,000cc motorcycle, but I don't think, like, for me, that wasn't the way to learn. I was always riding on track in SV650, which is like the most raced bike in the world. It's like the Spec Miata of motorcycles, right? But I even thought I have some bad habits and I have good habits, but let me tone it way down. And I got a bike. I got a KTM 390 Cup, of which you in 2016 were the national champion. So I picked that motorcycle because it's small. Doesn't have horsepower that's going to hide your mistakes. All it's going to do is shine. It's going to shine your mistakes, not hide them. Right? You're never going to look super. You're never going to look super racy on it. You're never going to be like, wow, it's a huge lap time. You're only going to say like, oh, you could have been faster. You could have been faster there. But when you get that stuff right, and then you move up to the next class,
it makes you a better rider.
It makes you a better rider, right? So for someone starting, you know, I chose my path. But what's your theory for like someone who wants to try to get into it early and just start off and like first way to go racing? What series and what machine to be on?
I would say, first of all, you're doing the right thing. I mean, don't go for a big bike. It's better to just learn on a small bike and take your time getting into it. Learn how to actually ride. Just learn as much as you can before you get onto a 600 or 1000. And it's better to start small and work your way up than to just start on a 1000 and make all these mistakes and potentially get hurt.
And the same thing goes for cars.
Yep.
Same thing goes for cars as well. It's just about, I think it's about trying to master that machine without the horsepower, right?
Yeah. Once you learn how to be the best on a small bike, you can take those same, like, the ideas of how you learn how to become good on that and become good on a big bike. It's just you got to go step by step and don't rush into it.
I've actually had so much more fun. This is the most fun I've ever had riding on motorcycles this season. And I've ridden 1,000cc bikes on tracks and my 650. And this 390 is a ball because it's more about, like, how do you keep the throttle open all the time, right?
You're less scared to push it to the limit.
Yeah, and the cornering is more fun. Like you're trying to develop these much larger sweeping lines through corners.
You're not going as fast on the straight, so you're trying to make up as much as you can in the corners.
I always just, when people ask me like how fast is it, I always say the bike's not fast, but it's really quick. Meaning that I get buzzed by 1,000cc bikes on the straight, but turn 5 or 6, you're like back on them or past them already because they have to slow that thing down, lean it into a corner, stand it back up and shoot it out, where, like, you know, we're just taking these really bigger, graceful, beautiful lines through it all.
And learning that stuff is of course going to make you a better rider, and then when you get onto a bigger bike, then you're going to be faster than all those guys anyways.
So I picked my motorcycle, KTM 390 Cup, and I picked the Moto Gladiator series. I picked that for this year. Is that what you call the most competitive racing in the world? It's club racing, which for me is fun. Like for me, as long as I'm racing and I'm on a grid, that's all that matters because you're still pushing as hard as you can against other people that are. And I chose that because Evolve GT, who's the group that we ride with, you know, they're all about coaching. So I go out every time I'm out with a coach, and it was a very seamless interaction between riding better, having your coaching, and having a race series sort of built in there. During the year, I'm going to dip into a couple of other classes. There's CCS.
Right.
I'm licensed there as well, so I'll jump into a few of those. But the goal is to try to do this one. But how do you think people, outside of New York or anything else, what's the right way to pick the right series? Or
I would say a lot of track day organizations, whatever one's your local one. For us, it's Evolve GT, and I love riding with them. They always put on a good show, and we all have fun, which is the main thing. So I would say, just go to your local track day organization and work with a coach and learn and just do track days and have fun with it. And then most track day organizations have their own race series, like for beginners, for like if you've never raced before, you can do your first race with the track day organization, which is good. And from there, I would say there's like, if you're in California, they have like, I think it's CMRA or something like that, which is like California Motorcycle Association.
Racing Association, right.
And that's basically like the CCS of California. There's all kinds of different organizations. And just start low and work your way up.
So let's talk a bit about your racing, because yours is more interesting than mine. So 2016, you were KTM Cup National Champ in America.
Yep.
2017, you rode Superbike in AMA, or Moto America.
Yeah, Super Sport in Moto America.
Super Sport.
Yep, Super Sport 600s.
Right. And this year is your first go at the International Series, right?
Yeah, this is my first full season racing in the UK. Actually, first full season racing outside of the US.
Right. So you're at a bunch of new tracks you've never been to before.
Yep.
Competing against people you never met.
Yep.
How's it going, man?
It's going. It's not too bad, to be honest. Learning a lot.
Right.
First race, set the lap record and got pole position, and just a little bit of bad luck. I mean, in the first race, I wound up snapping my shift linkage with 5 laps to go, so I did 5 laps in 4th gear, and I finished 7th. So not too bad. And then, we do pretty similar to Moto America, where we have 2 races a weekend. So in the second race on the weekend, I, again, just bad start, made a few mistakes.
Did you wheelie like I did?
No, actually, the Moto 3 is really hard to wheelie off the line because the first gear is so long.
Right.
I just didn't get a very good launch, and I went back very quick. So I started on pole position, and by turn 2, I was probably 10th.
So you're grabbing pole positions on tracks you've never been to, against competition you've never raced against.
Yep, and I'm the biggest one in the class, and arguably not on the best machinery this year. So
not bad. So to get a pole position in qualifying, it doesn't matter what the other people are doing. That's just you versus you. So you're going to brand new tracks, and you're grabbing pole. So how do you go about those weekends? So my way is I've been going to a lot of tracks I haven't been to this year.
Right.
I haven't been getting pole, and I've been doing all right. So I look at the map and I just try to figure out what are the 3 corners I need to learn. Like, what are the 3 most important ones? And for me, those are always ones that have the most amount of time you could be at full throttle.
Right.
Again, same as a car. So when you're going to all these new tracks, how do you plan out like your practice day and your qualifying your first day? So how do you handle going to a new track and figuring it out?
For me, the biggest thing is I have a teammate who's also been doing pretty well this year, and he's been to all the tracks. He's been in the same class for a while. So
he's from the UK,
yeah, and I try to just follow him as much as I can in the beginning.
Right.
But also, I mean, I do a lot of work before I even get to the track. So I'm watching videos of races from the year before, 2 years before.
Right.
Looking at the track map, watching Superbike, just doing my research, really. Checking out the track, making sure I know every little detail about the track before I go. Make sure I know the lap times from the year before, from practice to qualifying to the races. Make sure I want to know everything about that track before I get there. So I do all that homework before I get there, and when I show up, do some laps on the bicycle, run a lap, walk a lap.
This is a really important part. Cars, bikes, doesn't matter. It's always good to get on a racetrack, a cold track, on something that doesn't have an engine. So like either your feet or a bicycle, because you get out there and you're trying to figure out where your braking points are, and you're trying to learn the flow of the track, where the camber is, and there are certain things, even if you're doing it slow, you're at 60 miles an hour. That's really slow to racetrack under power, and you're not seeing everything. And so Fast people and safe track riders or drivers always go out and either run it or ride a bicycle and stop before corners, because you see it differently when you're standing still, and you can actually try to find a better line. You can see how much camber there is.
Right, that's an interesting point, that not a lot of people that do like club races or track days and stuff like that, nobody really gets a chance to walk the track. Or if they do have the chance, they just, it'll be fun.
I'll get out there and I'll learn it.
Yeah, but that's a very important thing for me, especially because I've never been to these tracks before. So anytime that I can be on that track, whether it's on my bike, on a bicycle, walking, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as I'm on the track and I'm circulating it, it's good time, because I can learn where there's a bump, or where, okay, there's more camber in this corner, or some little things like that.
Tip 2 for being at a new track, we believe in track maps, right? So every track, just go on Google, type in the track, you'll see either just like a straight line, kind of a map of the track. You'll see ones with different, they actually will tell you what the name of the corners are.
Right.
And then the third time you'll sometimes see is an elevation change.
Right.
You see those less frequently. Before every race weekend, I print out a few copies of the best map I could find, do the same.
Yep.
And then in my race trailer, I have a notebook that has all of the maintenance that I do on my motorcycle, all the tracks I go to, and then all the track maps. And I cover those with notes. In fact, my New York safety track one, which I did with Bill Sink, who's our coach, my coach, and who runs Evolve GT, and because I'm on the 390, I was trying to figure out corner 1. It's sort of like a double apex. Right. It's on the top of the mountain, and like the mountain or hill, or it's actually a mountain. It's pretty high up there.
It's pretty high.
The mountain starts to roll away. So if you go a little wide or a little hot, last year I went a little hot into turn 1. I was able to grab the first apex, just carrying too much speed through it, and then I wound up crashing on the outside. I went off the track because it just drops away there, right?
Does.
So on turn 1 I have on there Paasch line, because she worked a lot with Bill, and he was like, you could throw away a bit of the apex here, and,
right.
Which doesn't really work in racing because I'm leaving the door open,
right.
But so I have all these notes, and I have it for every track, and I imagine you do the same thing.
Yeah, always before I go to track. So when I'm in America, before I leave, I look at my trip and I say, okay, I have these 3 tracks while I'm away. Before I leave for the first one, because I stay over there the whole time, obviously.
Yeah.
I print out probably 3 from each track. I watch YouTube videos. I take as many notes as I can just off of those alone, so I know for my first session, okay, I need.
So you have like you have a track note thing all made out before you even get to the track.
Yeah, I have.
Cool.
I have one track map from each track full of notes before I even show up, and it usually sometimes they're a little off, and then I update it, but before I even get there, I have notes on the track.
And it sort of lets you know, like, turn 6 has a lot of throttle BF,
right.
So let's figure out how to get out of 4 properly. Those
right.
are what those pre-notes
That's
are like.
That's why I showed up to Alton Park, which was my last race, and first session I was 6th, second session I was 3rd, right away at the front. And it's because before I even went there, I had 2 pages full of notes just on, okay, you brake here, turn in here, watch for a bump there. Like I got all that just from studying on YouTube, which you can find for most tracks.
Do you find most of the competitors you're racing against are doing that? Are they preparing as hard as you are?
Honestly, I don't think so. I'm in a championship where all these kids they've been to these tracks for years and years and years, so they don't need to, like, well, at least they don't think they do. They don't think they need to be studying. They think they know the track, but the more work you put in, the more results you're going to get out of it. So,
and the safer your weekend will be. So. Yep. I used to, when I started doing track days and stuff, I run the Classic Car Club, right? So the business is having a fleet of 40 cars work perfectly. Right. And they do. But I never applied that to my motorcycle because there was always that stuff first, and I'd like throw the bike in the truck and go. Not always mechanically sound, not always, I just wasn't prepared. And, right. And honestly, because I wasn't prepared, I would crash a lot, or crash more than I wanted to. This year and last year, I one crash in 60 weeks of doing it, and it's because it's all about preparation. Right. And if the idea of racing is sometimes humbling to people, or you want to do it but it seems scary or something like that, preparation, like for me, like you do, is all about being safe that weekend, because it puts you in the mindset before you're even there. Right. And then you don't have to figure anything out. You just have to work on what you've already learned.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's all about preparation for me. Like, I've never been to these tracks before, never ridden with these people, like Michael said, and if I can do anything to already help the process of learning the tracks, like figuring out the bike at a certain track, I'm gonna do it because I want to win.
That's it. All right. So the other thing you should do when you're preparing the races, whenever you have a pro with you, you got to pick their brains for everything. So we spent a lot of time in cars, and we actually talked about my foot position, which was correct, which is a 90 degree on the peg, but as you start to lean more and more, I start dragging my foot. So now I've been sort of tucking it in, but still just trying to keep my hip a little bit open so I can still open up. My next race is at New York Safety Track, which is a great track, and it's nearby, which is cool. So I don't have an 8-hour trip this time. I have like a 2.5 hour, but I actually struggled there a lot because the first 2 times I rode it was in the rain, and I actually really like riding in the rain, but it's not the best way to learn a track. No. And I was on these like half track days where half the time there's cars on track, so you get like 15-minute sessions, so you get an out lap, a lap, and then you're in, and that's kind of
especially in the rain,
right? Especially in the rain. Lots of red flags, so like the calendar sort of goes. And then my last time there was this season with Bill when I learned a bunch of lines. But from a race perspective, I'm someone who has a lot more laps around that track than I do. To you, what's the most important secrets of that track?
There's a lot of different little tricks for New York Safety Track. It's a very technical track. So one good one is going into turn 1. Obviously it's uphill, so you can brake deeper than you would think. When you go in, you kind of hit the first apex and you drift out just a little bit and make sure you cut back in for the second one. But when you cut in, just stand it up and pin it wide open.
What's your favorite passing? Sorry, hang on.
Favorite passing point?
Yeah, what's your favorite passing point? New York Safety Track.
I would say
everywhere.
Yeah, really everywhere. But
it actually is a track that you can pass in a lot of places.
You can pass in a lot of spots. I really like passing into turn 2, that right-hander.
Yeah.
Because usually I carry so much speed through turn 1 and I'm wide open that when I go into turn 2, I just go. I don't brake until I'm already full lean.
And it has that nice camber in there, so if you could get in really good and tight, you can carry a lot of lean.
A lot of people brake really early for that corner, but I don't really brake until I'm already leaned over going into the corner, because whenever I want 250 anyways. So that's probably my favorite passing point. And then I really like when you come out of turn 2, you go up over that blind hill and then down.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the track.
That's one of my favorite parts on the track as well, especially if you're on a big bike and you line up the jump and you hit the jump.
Right.
I love that. It's sick.
And turn 17. I wish it was bigger because it goes downhill and then uphill really quick, and sort of the apex of the corner, or at least when you get on the throttle, is when it starts to go uphill. So you just get such a huge contact patch, and you can really even though it's a quick shot, you can just wind it way open all the way, give it a quick squirt, and then you got to brake again for 18 before the straight.
Yep.
That was kind of fun. That's like a little bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun spots on that track. It's one of my favorite tracks.
So you're racing Moto3 and British Superbikes this year. So how does everybody watch you and watch your progress this year?
So for everybody that wants to tune in the UK, you can watch it live on Eurosport, and then for everybody in America, you can watch live timing on the British Superbikes website. Stay up to date on my Instagram and Facebook page, and then usually the week after or so they put highlights up from the races on the weekend. So
cool.
Follow it.
All right. Good luck this year.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending some time.
Heck yeah.
Brandon Paasch, local racer. Good luck. That's how I like to get around these days. Private helicopter. It's more functional and a bit more badass than a private jet. Yeah, because private jets you need an airport there. Just land on the roof.
Yeah.
That's how I get to and from work every day. It's nice if you have the means. I highly recommend trying it out.